Howdy, and welcome to the Lost Rider Podcast. It's an honor and privilege to address you in the capacity of an interviewer, reporter, and media member. Too many modern media outlets have forgone the integrity and responsibility required of credible information sources. What you will receive here are straightforward discussions with legislators, agency leaders, biologists, engineers, doctors, and countless other experts that have the answers to questions often circulated as kitchen table issues. The title Lost Rider may be thought of literally as well as in the metaphorical sense. While there has been the instance that I was momentarily a little turned around at night in a wilderness area, the idea of being a lost rider in life, well, that fits most folks at some time. These renderings are coming to you in the form of the 25-year-old radio program, The News from the Camp House. It still airs every Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. Central Time on KULM 98.3 FM out of Columbus, Texas. The original intent was to relate outdoor topics to the general public. Immediately, it was found that all issues are relatable to the outdoors and that people are people. They all play a role and they all have a vested interest. It's this program's desire to answer common questions about how the world works, how it will operate in the future, and what's the holdup? So please listen, enjoy, and never hesitate to contact us with more questions and feedback. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, listening and posted the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune, and this weekend's edition is also brought to us by Shaw's Bend Country Club, Shaw's Bend Social Club, Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club folks who don't have a country club. All right, I'll tell you what. This weekend, we're doing something a little different again. We're here with Mr. Dennis Geesaman. He is a candidate for House District 85. He is a challenger to the incumbent, and we're going to visit with Mr. Geesaman a little bit and see what his ideas on what needs to happen in House District 85. Good morning, Mr. Geesaman. How are you doing?
Good morning. Doing great. You can call me Goose, too. That's my nickname ever since I was a little kid.
All right. Okay. One of the things that we know is that when a person wants to run for, say, like the House of Representatives where you're at, you pick about 3 or 4 topics to be an expert on, and you hammer those home during a campaign. And that's what we run to. What are your topics?
The first thing I would say is not compromising with the left anymore, just as a general idea. If I give a quick history thought process, back in the 1990s when George W. Bush won an election as governor, there was that was the first time there was kind of a sweep of the public statewide offices for Republicans. And so there was a need to compromise with Bob Bullock was the lieutenant governor, so they had to speak and work together. In a lot of ways, Bob Bullock was probably more conservative than George W. Bush was. But after that time, the left kept moving further and further and further to the left to the point where I don't feel like there's a ability to compromise at this time with the left. And I feel like the person that I saw in the office, currently holding the office, was way too many times voting with the Democrats.
All right. Okay. Yes, this left has drifted off and left a lot of people. We've heard that over and over again. All right. You're from Flatonia, so you're rural Texan, and what do you have particular committees in mind that you're looking at that you think you should try to apply for?
I'd like to I have a cow, calf, and hay operation just south of Flatonia, and I've had it for about 30 years now. So as a freshman, it's tough to get on committees, and I see the establishment circling their wagon, so it might be tough to get on any committees at the first term because they don't like that I'm trying to challenge an incumbent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't call them challenging an incumbent Republican. I call it challenging a uniparty. And so I would like to get on the agriculture committee.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be my first shot.
All right. Agriculture, that covers a way broad base there. And what we were visiting before we started here, we were talking about water. And so, I mean, agriculture covers a whole heck of a lot. Agriculture, wildlife, water, all that stuff is in there.
Unlike a lot of folks, I am an actual producer, and so I've seen some from that side. The district covers actually 6 counties. It's a very large rural county between Houston and San Antonio. So especially down in the most populous county is probably Wharton County, mm-hmm. Which covers El Campo, is the largest city in the district. It has like 12,500 people, and there's a lot of cotton and rice farmers down in that area too. So it gets into the other areas, and they're having a very difficult time right now with the drought. Only about half of the rice fields have put water on them for producing rice this year. So, mm-hmm. so the water issues are a big issue as far as agriculture goes right now.
All right. Well, you led me right over to where I like to talk about LCRA. LCRA, I think, is, if I remember correctly, it's the only river authority in Texas that doesn't have anyone elected to their board. Everyone is appointed by the governor. Would you be in favor of having a few elected people in their board?
Absolutely. That's the same thing. If you remember the constitutional amendments, so one of the amendments was to put $1 billion towards water projects every year. And that got approved easily. It's like a lot of the things in the constitutional amendments, they look really nice when you throw them up against the wall. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, how's it going to operate? There's some issues there. That $1 billion would only be administered by a committee appointed by the governor. So again, you don't have elected input to it. I think there needs to be more elected input.
All right. Correct me if I'm wrong again. I thought several sessions ago there was money taken from the rainy day fund that was supposed to go to the Texas Water Development Board that was going to help some of these rural towns with their old, outdated, leaky water systems. And that, I thought that was like 4 or 6 years ago, several sessions ago, and I never heard of anything getting fixed. And then, 2, 4, 6 years later, there goes another $1 billion.
I was actually, after I retired from the Air Force, I was in 21 years, and then retired and bought the ranch in Flatonia, and then have run cow, calf, and hay operation there for about 30 years. But and then I was on city council and the mayor for a period of 12 years, and we did get some grants to repair some old water wells, but they were small, just like to replace a pump or to drop a new well where the lining was bad. So we didn't. There were some grants available. I'm not sure if it's directly related to that, but they were just small grants.
All right. Well, no, that was a big question there because when they passed it this last time, I thought, well, by God, we've done this before, and then so it comes. How many times it's happened? Every 2 years. All right, education. That's another big deal. We have watched the education in Texas decline. And it's time you look at it and you go, well, we've been doing the same thing for the last 20, 25 years, and it's not getting better. It's time for some new ideas. It's time for something to change.
Yeah, I support the move to do education savings accounts and school choice, but that's really an interesting item. There's a couple items that flip between municipalities, especially large cities that you think are they take the more conservative viewpoint frequently of school choice because they have bad schools. When you get out into the rural areas here, the people really identify and they love their schools, and the schools are considered the heart of their community in many cases. So they don't want anything that they think is going to disrupt their operations there. So school choice is not, even though it's a kind of a conservative issue, it's not as popular in the conservative areas. So that's pretty interesting. But I would have supported the school choice. There are some holes you can drive a truck through in it right now, especially when you talk about Sharia law schools, or ability to make the playing field a little more level between the public schools and private school. Specifically talking about, I absolutely believe that every child deserves an opportunity for a good education. Every child deserves that. But competition always brings excellence. So if the idea that having competition there is something that people can buy into if it's somewhat of an even playing field. The two issues that the rural schools, and I've talked to a lot of teachers out here in the rural, both in Flatonia, and talked to some teachers just yesterday in Sealy. Mm-hmm. And they feel like the private schools have an opportunity to pick who that they come to their schools, so they don't take the problem children. And then the testing requirements are not as rigorous in the private schools. So if it's an even playing field, the rural superintendents, who are competitive people anyway, say we're ready to compete if we can have a somewhat of an even playing field.
All right, one of the problems, or one of the things I hear when we talk and discuss education, is the STAR test, or the standardized state test. And you hear parents, you hear students, you hear teachers, you hear everybody wants to get rid of it. But whenever we interview legislators, they say, well, you have to have some form of accountability. And it's not working. It's not working. The teachers say that, if we're just teaching to this test, we're not really teaching. We can do a whole lot better job. So, I don't know. Is it time to let this go? Is it time, to let that kind of testing go, or what do we do?
They made an attempt to address it this last legislative session, where they don't call it the STAR test anymore, and it's a scaled down test that's given 3 times a year. And we'll see how it works. You have to have some sort of a measurement. If I'm concerned that some people feel like they don't want to be held accountable, and that's one way to have accountability. You have to have some sort of accountability.
Well, it used to be that's what the SAT was for, and you knew how good your school was by what your graduating class, how they did on SATs.
Yeah, but a lot of the kids aren't going to university or college, so they're not even taking the SATs anymore.
All right, okay. Tell you what, let's take a quick break and thank the folks who let us come on here every Saturday morning. We'll be right back. Thank goodness for all the great sponsors we have here at News from the Camp House. H-E-B Food Stores. That's Stephen Tice at H-E-B. He helps me. He helps the community. He's a great man. I'm so thankful H-E-B loosened him up, lets him go around and sponsor a few things. H-E-B's got all your food needs. It's the greatest food store we got here in Columbus. Thank goodness for H-E-B. First State Bank. You go over to First State Bank, they'll take care of all your loans, all your deposits, your savings, anything you need. Bunch of great hometown people over there. You got Celia Tobias, John Pollock. Everybody over there is looking out for you. Miss Barbara Barta. It's a great bunch of folks at the First State Bank is also sponsoring News from the Camp House. First State Bank takes care of all my business. Baumgart Agency, Susan Baumgart at the Baumgart Agencies, her and Germania. She told me to plug Germania. Germania is an insurance that she likes everybody to know about. The Baumgart Agencies. Miss Susan and I are classmates, being classmates. She got me out of high school, sat right beside her, put us in alphabetical order where I could copy. And Susan Baumgart over at the Baumgart Agency, taking care of all your insurance needs. Lyco Realty, one of the original sponsors of News from the Camp House. Lyco Realty, the oldest real estate company in the county, and for the last 3 years voted the favorite realtor in the county. Lyco Realty, that's Miss Kimberly Johnson. That's Crockett's granddaughter. More kinfolks and classmates and great people from Colorado County. People from Colorado County helping people from Colorado County. That's great. Oh, thank goodness for all these wonderful people come to me want to be sponsors for News from the Camp House. Good morning and welcome to the second half of this week's News from the Camp House. We're here this morning with Mr. Dennis Geesaman. He is a candidate. He's a challenger. He's running for the State House seat for House District 85. He's trying to unseat the incumbent, and he's got a few ideas. I'll tell you what, one of the things that we see a lot of is we're talking about property taxes now. And from the perspective of the constituent, it's very easy to accept the idea that it's just stealing. That's all it is. Property taxes are theft. There's, a person that works all their lives to own a home or to keep the family farm together or to do whatever, and they get taxed out of it, and they view it as a form of stealing. And when you talk to a legislator about it, it comes up and they'll say, well, how, and the worst thing they could do is ask, how you going to do it? Because that's what we hire them for. Figure it out, but just quit stealing. What are you hearing?
Well, both call it, some call it stealing, some call it just paying rent to the government, and which is just as bad, if not worse. But me and my campaign manager have literally knocked on over 5,000 doors. And that's been one of the issues. And I hear people talking about, I just can't really stay here much longer. The elderly folks, between the insurance and property taxes, can't stay here much longer. So that's, you see people getting squeezed out in the far end of the spectrum. But it's what you don't see is that it's a barrier to entry on the younger end of the spectrum for the next generation. And I what really concerns me is if people don't see a pathway to the American dream, we're in trouble. So the governor has actually come up with a couple of good proposals on how to bring down property taxes, and the main way to do that is I think he's already taking exemptions for the elderly up to like $200,000 on your homestead. Mm-hmm. And what they can do though is, because we've had actually gone into the last two sessions with a large surplus, like $25 to $30 billion of surplus going into the session, but it all got spent. So I don't consider that a conservative way to do things. Right. But if they take this surplus and what they've already invested in exemptions, and then they just take the maintenance and operations out of all the ISDs and put that into the budget, that'll still leave the interest and sinking funds there, and for the property taxpayers, because they voted for it, they'll have to cover that. But take the maintenance and operation funds and put it in the budget, and with that, that'll do a tremendous cut on property taxes right there, and so that with then some minor shuffling, then they could make it just so that the homestead, there is no homestead tax on your homestead. Okay. So when they say bring property taxes down to zero, that's one way to do it. Now, whenever you talk about exemptions or whatever, you can, it's like squeezing on a balloon, and what you got over here is rates go up and appraisals go up. So I've talked to people and I've experienced where you have sometimes 10, 20, 30% increase on your appraisal in 1 year. By saying the maximum amount an appraisal can go up is 2 or 3%. That can be done. That's already been done in Florida, and it hasn't hurt them. And it's actually way back when California used to be somewhat conservative. They did that back in the 1970s in Proposition 13 out in California. So by restricting the amount that your appraisal can increase every year, that'll restrict the rapid growth on property taxes, along with putting maintenance and operations into the state's budget. The homestead taxes, property taxes should go to zero.
All right, that's, take someone my age, we get quite cynical, because for the last 25 years, I've heard legislators, I've heard candidates get on the stage, and they would say, anytime there's a surplus, we need to there's nobody can spend the taxpayer's money better than the taxpayer. And anytime there's a surplus, we need to make sure we give that money back to the taxpayer. And I was standing right beside him when one of them guys said that one time, and I looked at him and went, how in the hell are you going to do that? And he didn't answer me. I sounded, and at that point I said, "Oh, that's just something good to say to everybody, because how would you do it?"
Well, let me just give you an example. High property taxes are a symptom of out of control spending. So that's the real problem, is the out of control spending. So I'll give you an example. In the 89th legislature, which we just finished last summer, and then the 88th legislature was 2 years before that, they went into the 88th with a $250 billion budget. They came out of the 89th legislature less than 3 years later with a $352 billion budget. So that's a 40% increase in 3 years. That's not conservative in my book, or I don't think anybody that's reasonable. That's not conservative. So it's the out of control spending that needs to.
No, all right. So that's we've seen candidates running now, and people are going for it. They saw it work in Washington. I don't think they're through doing it in Washington, but we've certainly seen it work there. And I think there's a lot of people think the same thing needs to happen in Austin. And I'll add this right quick. When I interview some of the executive directors of some of the state agencies, immediately before a session, that's one of the things I've been told is we're all fixing to go in there and fight over that surplus and try to get our part of it. And when you ask them, well, don't you think the taxpayers ought to get it back? They don't even consider that.
Yeah, the going in position needs to be any surplus goes back to the taxpayer. That's got to be the going in position. And I don't know how much heft I can carry if or when I get elected, but that would be my going in position. And I've already tried to make some allies with some folks that are already in the legislature.
Well, that's the point. Okay. All right. You said something else about one of the key issues that has come up and people are talking about, which it kind of surprised me a little bit out here in rural Texas, but I understand, is because Sharia law has been in the news, Islam has been in the news, and apparently people are concerned.
People don't realize it, but and it's come to almost the top of the concern list because gradually, about 2 mosques a month, and we're already up over 320 mosques in Texas. And to me, that's a bit scary. And now they're trying to do with special land districts like the Epic Center, which they renamed as the Meadows because the Epic got too controversial. But what we've got is, the way I see Islam, there's a portion of it that's a religion that's protected by the First Amendment. But then they try to take that religious cover and bring it over to the political side and use that for cover over there. So on the political side, it's attached at the hip to Sharia law, and that their purpose there is not only is to try to get it running parallel to our system and then overtake our system. So we've got to put a stop to it. Now, the governor has done a good job by saying that CARE and Muslim Brotherhood are terrorist organizations. And we've got on the ballot on March 3rd is proposition number 10, proposal number 10 is to ban Sharia law. But that's just a proposal. It has no. I feel like the governor should call a special session right now to codify his executive orders. And he should also codify that Sharia law is illegal. And when we see that is in some of the school voucher programs where they're applying to have Sharia law schools. And we can't let that happen.
All right. Okay. Last thing is, what is your take? You know, I've got my own opinion of how the platform is put together. As far as taking care of constituents, where do I can't even think the good way to answer. Where do your marching orders come from when you go to Austin? How do you know what to do?
I listen to the people. I've been a delegate to the Republican convention where we actually wrote the platform in San Antonio a year and a half ago, and I actually went to Minneapolis for the Republican National Convention up in Milwaukee. That was fun. That was probably the most fun thing I've ever done. But seeing Hulk Hogan tear off the shirt, the whole operation here, that was great. But you've got to just listen to the people. Right now, the problem is, because of the compromising with the Democrats, the there was a number of Republicans, including my opponent, who crossed over and voted with all the Democrats to pick the Speaker of the House. He crossed over and voted with all the Democrats to set the House rules, which were written by a Democrat. And that gave them, although they got rid of the chairs being Democrats, they made them vice chair or deputy chair, whatever the proper name is, and they gave them more power. So they have the power to kill any conservative bills in committee. So things like E-Verify, I mean, that got killed in committee. There are several other items that we considered conservative priorities, like banning Sharia law, that died in committee.
Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So you've been to the convention. You've probably been at GOP convention several times here in Texas.
The first one I went to was in San Antonio a year and a half ago. Then that's what set up the platform that we're operating under right now, and then follow on went up to Milwaukee.
All right. Okay. Well, good deal. I tell you what, we're out of time this morning, but good luck. And what do you see right now? What kind of a response are you getting?
I'm getting a great response at the doors, my opponent is not hitting the doors like I am, and I really feel like it's a grassroots welling up. I've gotten endorsed by everyone from Gun Owners of Texas to Texas Eagle Forum to Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, Texans for Strong Borders. These are all grassroots organizations that have endorsed me, whereas my opponent has got a auto pen endorsement from Trump and Abbott based on one vote for school choice. He was promised those way before I even started the run.
Okay. All right. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Hope you learned something. As Dennis Geesaman, he is a challenger running for State House seat, House District 85. All right. Folks, hope you learned something this morning. Hope you enjoyed this morning's program. Now, y'all go out, you enjoy the rest of the weekend, have fun, be safe, and y'all just remember, pretty much any day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.